A horrific freak accident with an helicopter that took the life of an entire family who was visiting New York City has shocked the world, and the circumstances that surround this are quite mysterious, to say the least. Agustin Escobar, president and CEO of Siemens in Spain, along with his wife and their 3 children, were identified as the victims of the helicopter that plunged into the Hudson River in New York City on Thursday, according to the New York Post. The New York Helicopter Tours website featured a photo of the family of 5. Law enforcement reported that the family had arrived in Manhattan from Barcelona earlier that day. We already know the identity of the pilot as well, but there are a couple of things that we need to address. One of the most tragic things, and this is actually a trigger warning, 2 of the passengers on board the helicopter that crashed in the Hudson River were alive when divers pulled them from the water, according to the New York Times, but died shortly after. Mr. Escobar was the CEO of the rail infrastructure at Siemens Mobility, and his wife was a global commercialization manager at the company. The couple was ambitious and enjoyed traveling the world, according to social media posts. The thing is that we have a video. We have video of several videos of what happened with the helicopter, and so many things simply don't add up. First is this one. I think this is the one that has been shared the most, in which you can see like several pieces. I'm gonna try to play this in slow motion. You can see several pieces of the helicopter already like flying all by themselves in the air. Here's the tail. Here's the tail of the helicopter on one side. So it was severed for some reason. Here's the main rotor, which is still connected to the transmission. This is going to be important in a minute. And of course, without the main rotors, the body of the helicopter just flipped and hit the Hudson River water like a rock. It's baffling that two people survived that hit, but again, you're gonna play this. See that there was no way. There was no way that the pilot could have done anything at all. This is something that you have to know about helicopters, and that's why the Kobe Bryant accident with his daughter was so tragic as well. And it's so rare because helicopters are quite dangerous in general, but they still have, thanks to the laws of physics, a principle in which even if the engine they have an engine failure, the same system of the rotor will allow for the helicopter to not just fall like a brick. Okay, it's not going to happen. It's going to take a hit. It's going to be a rough landing, but the same way that rotors are designed has it has like this kind of way to absorb the hit of the landing. If you don't have the rotors, that is a different story. You'd have absolutely zero way of softening any blow, so any accident like that is going to be catastrophic. But the question is, what exactly happened? And I think this video is CCTV video is the best example we have of the helicopter. You can see it right here. It's this dot that is approaching. You see that it is flying, because you have to be careful. There's footage online, there's footage on X, there's footage on Facebook, which is fake. It's from like 8 years ago for another unrelated helicopter. This is the right one. Was flying, absolutely no problem. You're gonna see that it's gonna go behind this building, and as soon as it comes out on the other side, it's about okay. It's still going well, but all of a sudden you see that there's the shape, right? There's the shape of the helicopter, and there's the tail. You see that it begins turning really fast for no reason to its right. Okay, it turns to its right, and as soon as it does that very sharp turn that the pilot had absolutely no reason to do so. You see there, this is the tail. It's a bit hard to spot, but this is the tail. That it was the first part of the helicopter to come out. One theory is that due to some principles that I cannot explain because I'm not an expert on this, that the main rotor could have severed the tail of the helicopter itself. But at the same time, if that happened, well, right after that happened, you see that the main rotor is still attached to the helicopter, but then it just goes away. It begins to fly away. Keeps rotating on its own, and now the helicopter has no tail, and of course no tail rotor, no main rotor, and has absolutely no other way of avoiding the impact. So the first thing that impacts is the helicopter. The second thing that impacts is the tail of that impacts right here in a few seconds. It's about to impact right here. And the last thing was the main rotor. Now, the many theories about this, but one thing is for sure, this is not something, you can imagine that the main rotor of there it is, the main rotor of a helicopter is, well, needs to have all the best security measures to not be detached. Vox Cat Hudson River helicopter crash video shows that the rotor blades were fully detached from the fuselage but still spinning. This likely was not engine failure. Now, engine failure can still, in a helicopter, engine failure can still be dealt with, and the rotors are still attached to the transmission. This is something that, yeah, it's really strange. What do we know about the pilot? The pilot was a Navy SEAL. Pilot of the helicopter that crashed into the Hudson River yesterday has been identified as 36-year-old Navy SEAL veteran Sean Johnson. Sean Johnson posted a video on his Facebook page on March 27 showing himself over lower Manhattan in a Bell 206 helicopter. He had previously flown in Chicago, according to his profile. After his time in the U.S. Navy as a SEAL and gunner's mate responsible for fixing equipment, Johnson took on a variety of jobs, including on a TV show and as a bodyguard for celebrities. His wife said, but through it all, Catherine added, he always wanted to fly, so that was his passion. I've seen also other videos of him. I think he was the real deal. I think that he was the right stuff. I don't think this was pilot's, my opinion. This is only my opinion. I don't think that this was a pilot's a failure or any sort of mistake on his part. There are some explanation. Jeff Rainforth posted this very old video. It's interesting. You can watch it in full on his X account. What probably happened to the helicopter that crashed into the Hudson River, as explained by the U.S. Army, mast bumping is that if you do a certain maneuver in certain helicopters, if you do a very strong maneuver, then it can lead to the very rotor to just sever the mast. Mast bumping can cause the mast to separate and the main rotor to come off. So in the video that he posted, it's interesting because it explains the physics of this and why when the pilot tries to compensate, okay, this happens. The rotor itself begins to do this and it crashes with the mast, or it's like makes a dent in the mast, and when it rotates makes a dent again, and it basically just detaches. But the problem is it detaches. Okay, you see the detachment, right? You see the detachment. that kind of accident will detach the blades exactly at the mast. But as I told you, and as Chris Bryan mentions, the only problem with the mast bumping theory is that the mast is still attached to the transmission. If it was mast bumping, it would have been severed at this. We just see a line, but it was still attached to the transmission. How is it possible for a complete transmission to be severed from the helicopter? Even if the blades for some reason crashed with the tail, I don't understand how that physics, those physics don't add up. And at the same time, if the rotor severed the tail of the helicopter, what exactly made the complete transmission of the main rotors to come off? Because that would have been an additional force. That really doesn't make sense. There's an update. Michael Roth, a New York City helicopter tour CEO, reveals new details on tragic Hudson River helicopter crash. The pilot of the helicopter reportedly called out about needing fuel before the fatal accident. The pilot called in that he was landing and that he needed fuel, and it should have taken him about 3 minutes to arrive, but 20 minutes later, he didn't arrive. I don't know what is relevant about this. I don't think this is also a problem about fuel, because in all cases, again, engine failure. Let's say that for some reason the metering of the fuel is faulty, thinking that it will have like redundant mechanisms, so you don't see, you actually see the level of the fuel. This is not going to happen. This is flying in a straight line, and all of a sudden there's this huge turn to the right. It's a very sudden turn to the right. Okay? Now, in my experience with aircrafts and physics, what prevents the helicopter, or what makes the helicopter to fly in a straight line, is the tail rotor. It's that compensates the rotation of the main rotor. So that's the function of the tail rotor. You would say maybe something happened with the tail rotor that malfunctioned, so that's why it didn't compensate, and that's why the helicopter began this crazy spin. But again, it could happen, but what made the tail of the helicopter just come off? All right? Because some people are saying, okay, of course, if the helicopter loses the tail rotor, then it's going to be spinning out of control. But we see here that the order of events is that the tail is still attached, the helicopter begins the crazy spinning, or the crazy turn to the right, and then the tail comes out. And after that, the main rotor with the transmission attached just pops out. It's in the middle of in the middle of the sky. It's a total freak accident, a very tragic accident that took the lives of this whole family. It was horrific. But again, it's we are seeing things that make no sense. Again, I'm not an expert, but I know a bit or one bit or two about helicopters and how they work, and I don't know, this doesn't make sense. If you have an opinion, let me know what you think about this in the comments. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the Bottle Language Guy. Much love and bliss.